The silence of space was only broken by the steady hum of the human medical ship drifting through the galaxy. On board, the crew had only one goal: deliver much-needed medical supplies to distant colonies. The crew was used to the quiet of space, the routine of their mission, and the gentle hum of the ship's engines. There were no threats in their path, only the stars, distant and untouchable. But that calm was about to shatter suddenly. Without warning, a flash of light streaked across the ship's sensors. It wasn't a meteor or a comet, it was something far worse. The ship's systems screamed in alarm, and the crew jumped into action. The captain, standing at the bridge, turned quickly, his face going pale as he read the incoming data. Enemy. Ships approaching. Galactic Empire, the communications officer announced, his voice shaking. The crew exchanged nervous glances. The Galactic Empire, the most powerful force in the galaxy, had always been a distant legend, a story told in whispers, a fear lurking in the dark. No one thought they would ever see the Empire's warships, let alone face them. But now, the Empire was here and they were attacking a medical ship, of all things. "Captain," the navigator said urgently, "they're closing in fast. We won't outrun them. We need to make a decision now." The captain's mind raced. What should he do? There were no weapons on board, no defenses. The ship was meant to help people, not fight wars. The Empire's fleet was too large, too powerful. A few escape pods, that was all they had. But what good would that do? They were no match for the massive warships of the Empire. "We have to fight back," the captain said firmly. "Activate the emergency protocols. Prepare to deploy everything we have." But even as he said it, he knew it would not be enough. The enemy was too strong. His heart sank as he watched the approaching fleet on the ship's main screen. A massive shadow covered the stars as the enemy warships loomed larger, their powerful engines leaving no room for escape. The crew scrambled to do what they could, trying to protect the ship, but it was clear this was no ordinary attack. The Galactic Empire had set its sights on this ship, and it wasn't going to stop until it was destroyed. Just as the crew braced for impact, something unexpected happened. A signal, ancient and faint, began to pulse through the ship's systems. It wasn't from any known network. It was something old, so old that no one on the crew even knew it existed. The ship's computer beeped softly, detecting something buried deep within the ship, something that had been dormant for centuries. The captain frowned, his hands hovering over the control panels. What was this signal? It was familiar, almost like a warning. Then, without warning, the ship's systems came alive. Lights flickered. The ship groaned as though waking from a long sleep. "Captain," the technician shouted, his eyes wide. "The old warships, they're activating." At first, no one understood. What warships? Earth hadn't had a military presence in space. For centuries, the idea of warships was a thing of the past. Yet here, buried deep within the ship's ancient database, was the key to something much more powerful than they could have imagined. The emergency alarms that had once sounded throughout the ship now ceased, replaced by the steady thrum of a long-forgotten system coming to life. The crew felt a strange energy, an unexplainable pull, as if the ship itself was preparing for battle. On the planet below, a hidden base, long abandoned, began to wake as well. A fleet of forgotten warships buried deep in Earth's history, waiting for a time when they would be needed, started to stir. The captain turned to his crew, his eyes wide with disbelief. "I don't know what's happening, but it's our only hope. Get ready, we fight back." The Galactic Empire's ships were only moments away from striking, but as they prepared to fire, something unexpected happened. One by one, the ancient warships rose from their hidden positions, their weapon systems firing up with a deadly hum. They were not just ships, they were Earth's last line of defense. The crew of the medical ship watched, stunned, as the ancient warships began to power up. These were no ordinary vessels. They were built with technologies far beyond anything the Empire had ever seen. The ship's weapons systems hummed with energy, their shields glowing bright. The crew, now unsure of what to do next, watched as Earth's forgotten power slowly began to awaken. "Captain, they're coming," the navigator warned. "We can't just wait here." The captain, looking at the view of the Empire's ships bearing down on them, made a choice. "We don't just wait, we fight." The medical ship, now surrounded by Earth's ancient defenders, prepared to face the greatest battle in humanity's history. The crew had no idea what awaited them, but they knew one thing: they had to defend Earth, no matter the cost. Asterisk, the medical ship, now surrounded by Earth's ancient warships, felt smaller than ever. As the shadow of the Galactic Empire's ships loomed overhead, the crew stood frozen, unsure of what to expect next. The hum of the warship's engines vibrated through the floor, and a strange, powerful energy surged through the air. The ancient vessels, silent guardians of a forgotten Earth, were now fully awake. Captain Adams stood on the bridge, staring out at the fleet of warships that had once been nothing more than a myth, a story passed down through generations. How could they possibly know how to control them? How could the crew, trained for medical missions, operate these colossal machines of war? "Captain, the warships are responding to the signal," the tech officer said, his voice filled with disbelief. "It's like they're alive." Adams turned to look at the console. The ancient ships, sleek, battle-worn, and powerful, were now fully activated. He could see them on the monitor, massive and imposing, their weapon systems glowing as they powered up. They were ready, but ready for what? A deep voice boomed over the intercom. The AI system that had once controlled the warships now speaking again, as if it had never been dormant. "This is command. You are the last defense. The Empire has no mercy. We are the shield. We are the sword. Your command is our purpose." The crew exchanged confused glances. Who was commanding them now? The AI, could they trust it? What if it was too old, too out of touch with the present to understand the threat they faced? "Captain, we don't know what we're dealing with here," the navigator said urgently. "The warships, they have weapons, advanced technology. But do we have the knowledge to use them? What if they malfunction?" Adams took a deep breath, trying to steady his racing thoughts. He had no choice. The Galactic Empire's ships were closing in. They had no time for doubts. "We don't have a choice. We learn as we go. Everyone, prepare for battle. This is humanity's fight." The crew moved quickly, doing their best to understand the control panels and ancient systems that now controlled. The warships, the medical ship, once a place of healing, was now preparing for war. And as the crew made their adjustments, the forgotten warships glided into position, their cannons aimed at the incoming Empire fleet. Meanwhile, outside, the Empire's ships were relentless. Massive, dark ships that seemed to swallow the stars. Around them, they weren't just here for battle, they were here to conquer, to wipe out anything in their path. Their guns were primed, their shields ready to crush anything that dared challenge them. They never expected a fight like this. Adams watched as the medical ship's sensors picked up the approaching enemy vessels. The Empire's ships were large, heavily armored, and designed for destruction. They were a deadly force, and they were about to engage. But with Earth's warships now in the fight, the scale had tipped. It wasn't just a struggle for survival anymore, it was a battle for the future of humanity. "Captain," the tech officer's voice broke through the tension. "We've got control. The warships are responding finally. They're waiting for you to give the order." Adams stepped forward, his hand hovering over the command panel. A deep part of him felt something shift, as though he was no longer just a captain of a medical ship. He was now part of something much bigger. A legacy, a line of defense built long ago, now waiting for him to lead them into battle. "Open fire," Adams shouted, his voice steady. "Let's show them what humanity is capable of." The ancient warships responded in an instant. The Earth fleet, once dormant, now unleashed hell upon the Galactic Empire. Laser beams tore through space, lighting up the dark expanse. Explosions rocked the Empire's ships as Earth's ancient vessels unleashed their full fury. The fight was on, and the Empire was not prepared for the ferocity of humanity's defense. The medical ship, though unarmed, moved alongside the warships, its crew aiding in the defense. The Empire's ships, caught off guard by the overwhelming power of Earth's forgotten fleet, faltered for the first time. For the first time in history, they had underestimated humanity. But even as the battle raged, Adams knew this wasn't over. The Empire's fleet was vast, and they would not back down easily. The warship's energy reserves were running low, their systems older than anything the Empire had seen. There was a ticking clock, and every second counted. "We need to move fast," the navigator warned, looking at the data flashing across the screen. "The Empire's reinforcements are on the way. We've got to take out their flagship before it arrives, or we won't survive this." Adams looked at the view screen, watching the battle unfold. The Empire's ships were regrouping, their superior numbers ready to strike back. He turned back to the crew, feeling the weight of their lives on his shoulders. "This is humanity's chance to show the galaxy what we're capable of. We fight to win no matter the cost." And with that, the battle for Earth's future continued. The silence of space shattered once again. But this time, it wasn't just the hum of battle. The faint screech of metal grinding against itself echoed through the ship. The crew, hearts racing, watched as the Galactic Empire's warships, wounded but not broken, began to regroup. The once confident force now found itself on the defensive, its arrogance faltering as Earth's forgotten fleet of ancient warships tore through its ranks. But the Empire had no intention of backing down. "We're not out of the woods yet," Captain Adams said, his voice calm but tinged with urgency. "That flagship is still out there, and they'll be back with reinforcements." His words were a bitter truth. The Empire's flagship, massive, nearly indestructible, was still intact, waiting just beyond the battle's reach. With it, the fleet's true strength, their final weapon, was coming. They had been holding back, but now the time was near. The real fight was about to begin. On the bridge, the tech officer's hands danced over the controls. "Captain, I'm detecting a new energy signature. Something big is coming in fast." Adams turned to face the screen. The dark void of space rippled as the flagship emerged from the shadows, flanked by a squadron of warships, all fully charged and brimming with deadly energy. This was no longer a fight for survival. The Empire had brought its full power to bear there. "Launching everything they've got," the navigator warned, his eyes wide. If they fire those weapons at us, we won't survive. The warships around Earth fired again, their energy pulses clashing against the Empire's shields. But despite the intensity of their attacks, the enemy was unfazed. They were learning, they were adapting. The crew of the ancient Earth warships had no time to celebrate their earlier victories. Each moment they spent fighting only pushed the Empire to retaliate harder. We need to regroup. We need a strategy, Adams said, feeling the pressure. Building. Focus fire on their lead ship. Take out their command vessel first. If we can break their leadership, we might stand a chance. Just as Adams gave the order, the entire ship shuddered. A powerful blast slammed into the side of the medical ship, throwing everyone off balance. The lights flickered. The hum of the ship's systems slowed. Damage report, Adams barked. We've taken a direct hit to our port side, the engineer replied, scrambling to the console. Shields are down to 30%. The medical ship won't last much longer like this. The realization hit Adams hard. The warships were their only hope now. He turned back to the view screen, where Earth's warships were still fighting bravely. They were holding their ground, but it wouldn't last forever. We need to buy more. Time, Adams muttered. Can we override the weapons control system to reroute power from the medical ship? The tech officer nodded, his face grim. It's a risk, but we can divert auxiliary power to the warships. It'll give them the firepower they need to destroy the flagship, but the medical ship will be left without defenses. It was a gamble, a dangerous one, but the odds were narrowing fast. If they didn't act now, the battle would be over before it even truly began. Do it, Adams ordered. Divert all auxiliary power to the warships. We fight to the last. As the crew worked frantically to reroute power, the ancient warships surged forward once again, their weapons now glowing with intensity. They were no longer just machines, they were an extension of humanity's will to survive. And in that moment, humanity's will was unbreakable. The Galactic Empire, sensing the shift in momentum, retaliated with their most devastating weapon. A powerful beam of energy shot from the flagship, aimed directly at the lead warship of Earth's fleet. The beam hit its target, sending a shockwave that rocked the entire battle. For a moment, everything seemed still. The medical ship, now powerless, drifted in the wake of the chaos. The crew braced themselves for the worst. Then, the impossible happened. The lead Earth warship, battered and scarred, fired a final, blinding blast of energy directly into the heart of the Empire's flagship. The explosion lit up the entire sector, brighter than 1,000 suns, as the Empire's flagship crumbled into dust. The battle for Earth had reached its turning point, but victory was fleeting. Enemy reinforcements detected. The navigator shouted, "They're here." The fleet of Empire warships, seemingly endless, began to pour in from all directions. This wasn't over. The war had only just begun. We may have taken down their flagship, Adams said, his voice cold. But we've only just awakened the true wrath of the Galactic Empire. Get ready, everyone. This fight is far from finished. The battle was far from over. In the wake of their victory, the crew of the ancient Earth warships felt a brief moment of relief. The flagship of the Galactic Empire had fallen, but as the enemy reinforcements flooded into the system, it became clear that their struggle was only just beginning. Captain Adams stood on the bridge, watching the chaos unfold before him. The dark void of space had become a battleground. The sky was lit up with explosions, as Earth's warships clashed against the endless tide of Empire ships. The medical ship, now defenseless and crippled, floated in the heart of the storm, helpless, against the overwhelming force of the Empire. "Captain, we can't keep this up much longer," the navigator shouted over the loud clattering of the ship's alarms. "The warship's energy reserves are almost depleted. We need to find a way to destroy their reinforcements before it's too late." Adams gritted his teeth. The enemy was relentless, their warships coming at them in waves, each one more dangerous than the last. The crew was exhausted, but there was no time to rest. Earth's warships, though ancient and powerful, were not invincible. They had been dormant for centuries, and their systems were starting to fail. "Give me a status report," Adams ordered. The tech officer glanced at his console, his face pale. "The warships are down to 20% power. If we don't act fast, they'll be gone. The energy drained from the battle is too much." Adams's mind raced. The odds were against them. The Empire's ships were closing in, and Earth's fleet was on the verge of collapse. If they didn't act now, humanity's last hope would be lost. Then, something unexpected happened. A new signal appeared on their sensors, a strange, encrypted transmission coming from deep within Earth's solar system. It was unlike anything the crew had encountered before, but it was undeniable. It was coming from Earth itself. "Captain," the tech officer said, his voice full of awe. "The signal, it's Earth. The old defenses, the hidden satellites. They're waking up." Adams turned to the screen. The transmission was coming from Earth's forgotten defense network, an array of long-buried orbital weapons, designed centuries ago to protect humanity from threats just like the one they were facing now. "They never thought we'd need them again," Adams said quietly. "But Earth has been preparing for this moment, without us even knowing." The crew rushed to work, pulling up schematics of the old Earth defense network. The system, though outdated, was vast. It had been built to withstand an attack far greater than this, and now it was their only chance to turn the tide. "Redirect all remaining power to the warships," Adams ordered. "Prepare the orbital weapons for firing. We have one shot at this." As the crew scrambled to carry out the captain's orders, the warships of Earth's fleet continued their desperate fight against the Empire. Every shot fired, every explosion that lit up the darkness of space, pushed them closer to the edge. Time was running out. The enemy fleet loomed ever closer, their massive ships casting shadows over the Earth fleet. The Galactic Empire had come, with overwhelming force, and even the ancient warships weren't enough to stop them. But Earth's forgotten weapons, hidden for so long, had one more surprise in store. "Orbital weapons are ready, Captain," the tech officer called out. "We can fire them now." Adams's heart raced. This was it. Earth's last defense was in place. He looked out the window at the Empire's warships, preparing to make their final assault. He knew that once the weapons fired, there would be no turning back. Fire. The entire ship shook as the first orbital weapon fired. Massive energy beam, the likes of which had never been seen before. It ripped through the space between Earth and the enemy, striking the lead Imperial ship with the force of a supernova. The ship exploded in a burst of light, its massive hull disintegrating into space debris. The crew watched in stunned silence. The orbital defense system was working. The impossible was happening. "Captain," the navigator shouted, his voice filled with disbelief. "They're retreating. The Empire's ships are pulling back." Adams couldn't believe it. The Empire, which had come with such overwhelming strength, was now retreating. The Empire's forces, shattered and broken by Earth's ancient weapons, were fleeing back into the void, unable to overcome the sheer power of humanity's final stand. The battle was won. The medical ship, though battered and broken, had survived. Earth's warships, despite their age and frailty, had fought back with everything they had, and humanity, in its darkest hour, had risen to meet the challenge. But as Adam stood on the bridge, gazing out at the wreckage of the battle, he knew that this was only the beginning. The Empire would not forget their defeat, and humanity's fight for survival had only just begun. "Prepare for the next battle," Adam said, his voice calm but resolute. "This war is far from over."